Hey Tony, it is Friday, and first off, to answer your question of the week, I don't know how soon we'll get a way to really combat it in like a large scale sense, but the best way to combat the virus is to wash your hands. Wash your hands, don't touch your face, as I obviously just touched my face. But don't touch your face, don't shake hands, and more importantly, just like keep up good hygiene habits. If you start to feel sick, quarantine yourself, and it should be passed in a few days. So this week has obviously been covered all over the place in news about the coronavirus. I'm just going to use the coronavirus term because that's the term most people know, and I don't really want to go into the specifics of it. But it's been really fascinating. So when this first started, I had a real cavalier attitude about it, which I was like, oh, we've had so many pandemics in the past 10 years. This one should just be another one of those. But this one started to get really real really quick. I mean, countries don't shut down for nothing. Entire colleges don't shut down for nothing. And courts don't shut down for nothing. Which makes me think that, okay, this is something to really be mindful of. It's been kind of interesting to sit, from my perspective, being a someone who spends a lot of time in courts, because courts are a great vector for disease. Because you have a lot of people there, a lot of which, particularly if you're in like a criminal court, a lot of which who are in difficult conditions of confinement, or even in situations like where I work or in the work that I do. Yeah, it certainly has a relatively low income clientele that I work with every day. Now, my clients are obviously the big banks, but the defendants are all regular people who came about a tough time, and they're also at risk. And it kind of it's something I've been mindful of throughout this week because I spent all week in court basically. I was not in court yesterday or the day before, but every other day this week I've been in court, and it's something that I've had, or not yesterday. It was Tuesday and Wednesday I wasn't in court. Monday, Thursday, Friday I was. But it's something that I've had to be mindful of. Now, one thing that I've really kind of been particularly interested about is how the coronavirus epidemic matches up to the Spanish flu. Now, the Spanish flu took place in the late 19 teens. I think it started 1918, give or take. And it was the largest pandemic and the worst pandemic of the modern world. Millions died. Like, I think estimates are up to as high as like 150 million people died from the Spanish flu. And there's been a lot of comparisons drawn between the Spanish flu and the coronavirus. Now, I think there is a lot of difference in which the big thing about the Spanish flu is it was a particularly virulent strain of flu that led to pneumonia and led to so many other issues that just destroyed the body. But this one is a little bit different in which it doesn't like it follows more of a more traditional disease vector graph in which it targets people immune compromised and elderly first, whereas the Spanish flu, what was particularly shocking about it was how it took down people from the ages of roughly 18 to 35, people in the prime of their life, who don't usually fall victim to diseases like that. So that's one big difference, but a lot of the misinformation campaign really is very similar. So the big thing about the Spanish flu is it was taking place during World War One, and Woodrow Wilson had a huge gag order on anything that could be even moderately construed as anti-American should be censored. Anything that could damage morale at home should be censored. And talking about a major pandemic would really destroy your morale at home. And it's kind of interesting to see how this one started off, how like China had a huge misinformation campaign and America was aware for a long time that this was coming and we didn't really do much about it. And you're starting to see a lot of the flaws of the American medical system, which are many, and I'm sure I could touch on it at a later point, but not really worthwhile in this video, especially with how long last week's was. But it's going to be really interesting to see where we end up in about 6 months. Now, the courts in Connecticut have closed for next week for any non-emergency hearings. My work's not emergency hearings, so I'm not in court at all in Connecticut next week because it's all closed. Mass, rumor is going to be following shortly thereafter. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Like, obviously, sporting events have been closed, have been canceled. Entire seasons are put on hold. Like, baseball season is not starting for another few weeks. College campuses are going to online learning. It's kind of interesting to see ground zero as it is in America for this first wave of the coronavirus. And I feel like it's going to be something that we're going to be talking about for years and years to come, because this is all part of the story of us. And how we combat this problem is going to be, I'm not going to say a defining feature of the coronavirus outbreak, but it's going to be part of the narrative. And I'm really interested to see where we end up. So, Tony, my question for you is, what do you think the narrative is going to be when we tell this story in 20 years? Tony, I'll see you on Wednesday. Later, bro.